Hello everyone, welcome to the Linux into YouTube channel. In this video we are gonna talk about the MySQL. So this video is basically a MySQL long course, and for this long course we will use the Ubuntu operating system. In this course you will learn that how you can install the MySQL 8 on Ubuntu, how you can configure the secure access, how you can create the databases, and how you can create the tables, and how you can insert the data and retrieve the data from your tables. So if you are a beginner and you want to learn about the MySQL, so this course will be very beneficial for you. So these are the topics of this course that we will cover, and these are total 24 topics, and in these 24 topics we will cover each basic thing of MySQL. So I hope you will enjoy this course and you will learn about MySQL. So without any further ado, let's get started. So the first topic that we are going to discuss is installing MySQL 8 on Ubuntu. To install the MySQL 8 on Ubuntu, you need access to your user account with the sudo privileges. So in this topic, I will guide you step by step that how you can install the MySQL 8 on your Ubuntu. So in order to install the MySQL 8, open up your terminal, and let me zoom in the terminal a little bit so that you can see the commands in proper way. So the step number 1 for the installation of MySQL 8 is to enable the MySQL repositories. Your installation of Ubuntu may not have access to the MySQL repositories. So to download the latest repositories, you have to run this command on your terminal, and I am pasting the command here. I will provide you this command in the description of this video, so you can copy and paste it from there. So after writing this command, what you have to do, you have to hit enter, and when you will hit enter, it will connect to the server and it will start downloading the .debian configuration file. The -c option in this command will direct the system to resume the download if it is interrupted. So it will connect to the server and it will download the Debian file. Hit enter. Alright, the repository is downloaded successfully, and you can see that a progress bar displays to let you know when the download is completed. So after downloading the repository successfully, then you have to install the MySQL repositories. That is essentially the step number 2 of your installation process. So to install the repository, write on your terminal sudo dpackage-i, and now write the name of the file. That is MySQL apt-config 0.8.11 all.deb. So after writing this command on your terminal, hit enter. Enter your sudo password here. This is the MySQL installation configuration tool. It will present you the different options for which MySQL version you want to install. So you have to leave the default settings and click OK. So select OK and press enter. The MySQL repositories are installed successfully. So let me just clear the terminal. So the step number 3 is to refresh the repository. So whenever you install some repositories or download some repositories, you should update your repository listing to ensure that you are installing the latest release. Write on your terminal sudo apt-get update. The apt package repository cache is updated successfully, and now we have to install the MySQL server. So in order to install the MySQL server, write on your terminal sudo apt-get install MySQL-server. So this is the command to install the MySQL server. So after writing this command, press enter. So now press Y here to continue the installation process. So during the installation of MySQL server, it is asking to provide a strong password that will be set for the root account of the MySQL database. So we can leave it blank to enable passwordless login Unix socket based authentication. So enter the root password and then press OK. Re-enter your root password. Alright, the MySQL server is successfully installed on my Ubuntu. So in order to verify the installation and check the installed version of your MySQL server, you can run the following command on the terminal: mysql-v, and it will show you the installed version of MySQL on your terminal, that in case the MySQL version 8.0.20 is installed on my Ubuntu. So this is how you can download the repositories of MySQL, install the repositories, and install the MySQL server on your Ubuntu. So now let's move on to the next topic, that is configuring the secure access. So by default, the MySQL lacks many basic and important security features, but it comes with an installation script that walks you through the configuration. So to install the MySQL security script and to configure the secure access, write on your terminal. Let me just clear the terminal, and now write on your terminal sudo mysql _secure installation and hit enter. So now it is asking you to enter a password for your user root. So enter your password. So validate password component can be used to test the passwords and improve security. It checks the strength of the password and allows the user to set only those passwords which are secure enough. So would you like to set a validate password component? So if you want to proceed with it, then you have to write Y and press enter. So there are 3 levels of the password validation policy. The first is low, the second is medium, and the third is strong. So enter 0 for low, 1 for medium, and 2 for strong. So I'm going to enter 0 here. So do you want to change the password for the root? If yes, then you have to press Y, and if no, then you have to press N. So I'm going to change the password for the root. So enter new password. Re-enter your new password. So do you wish to continue with the password provided? Of course, yes. So by default, a MySQL installation has an anonymous user. It allows anyone to log into MySQL without having to have a user account created for them. So this is intended only for testing and to make the installation go a bit smoother. So you should remove them before moving into a production environment. So if you want to remove the anonymous user, then you have to write here Y. So the next option is disallow root to login remotely. So it will disallow the root to log in remotely to your MySQL server or to access the databases. So it is a good practice to do that and to disallow that. So in order to do that, write here N. But in future, if you want to allow root login remotely, then you have to write this command on your terminal again. That is sudo mysql secure installation, and when you will come to this point, then you have to write Y here. So by default, the MySQL comes with a database that is named as test and that anyone can access. So this is also intended only for the testing and should be removed before moving into a production environment. So in order to remove the test database and access to it, so you can press Y to have the test database, or you can press N to remove the test database. So I am going to remove the test database and I am writing here Y. So we have to reload the privileges table now. So press Y here and all is done. So this is how you can configure the secure access to your MySQL. So I hope you got the point. Now let's move on to the next topic, that is topic number 3, creating a database and switching between the databases. So in this topic we will learn that how we can create a database and how we can switch between the databases in MySQL. So the MySQL allows you to create multiple databases, and into a database you can create multiple tables to handle or manage your data. So in order to create a database, we have to log in as the MySQL root user. So in order to log in as the MySQL root user, write on your terminal mysql-u root-p. So enter your password that we have set in the previous topic. So it shows welcome to the MySQL monitor. and the output is MySQL. It means that the MySQL is now in working and you can execute multiple commands here. So before creating a database, we can see the list of available databases. So to see the list of already available databases, right here, show databases. And after writing the command, you have to put semicolon here like this. So it shows the list of the databases that these databases are already present in this MySQL. So in order to create a new database, you need the create privileges for the database. So right here on your terminal, create database. And now you have to write the name of the database that you want to create. For example, I want to create a database of Linux int. So you have to write the name of the database and then you have to put the semicolon. So after this you have to press enter and you can see that the query is okay. It means that there is no error and the query is executed successfully and one row is affected. So let's see that whether this database is created or not. So right here on your terminal, show databases query and hit enter. And now you can see that it has successfully created a new database that is Linux int. So now we have a list of database and the newly created database. So by default, no database is selected. So to select any database, you have to write use and write the name of the database like information schema. So the database is changed and the current database is now information schema. And similarly, if you want to switch to the Linux int database, then you have to write use Linux int. All right. So the database is now changed. So that is how you can create a database and switch between the databases. Now let's talk about creating the tables. So as we know that the MySQL is the relational database, and in the relational database we have multiple tables. A table is a set of data elements that we use to store the data. So while creating the table, we store the data into the tables. A table have multiple columns and the values. So let's see that how we can create the tables in MySQL. So in order to create the table, open up your terminal. And we have already selected the database that is Linux int. So I am going to create the tables in this database. So to create a table, we have to write here create. It could be either in lowercase letters or in uppercase letters. So now write here table, create table. And now you have to write the name of the table. For example, I want to create a table of the Linux int employees. So I'm going to write here the name of the table that is employees. And while you are creating the table, you have to define the column of the tables. So in order to define the column of the tables, put this bracket and now write the name of the columns. Like the first column is ID and the type of ID is integer. So in order to define it, write int. The next column is name and the value for the name will be in the letter, so it would be string. So when you are defining the strings in MySQL while creating the tables, you have to write varchar. And so how many letters it would contain. For example, I'm gonna write here 20, that the name should contain maximum 20 letters. And the next column is email column, which will be also varchar. And the value for the email will be maximum 30. So we have defined the columns, and similarly we can define the multiple columns like 10 columns or 20 columns here. So let me define a new column here that is designation column, and it will also be varchar and its maximum value will be 10. So in this way we can define the columns. So after writing the query, you have to put semicolon. So whenever you will insert the data into the employees table, first of all you will write the value for the ID in integer, then you will write the name of the employee, then you will write the email, and then you will write the designation. So hit enter, and in the output we can see that query okay and 0 rows affected. it means that we have successfully executed the queries. So if you want to see the tables, then write here show tables and hit enter. So in the output you can see that in the Linux Int database we have a table that is employees table. So let's create a new table here. Let's assume that the Linux Int has a library which has multiple Linux books. So we can create a table for the books as well. So create table, write here the name of the table, that is books. So every book has an ID, a name and ISBN number. ISBN, which is International Standard Book Number, and it will be also in varchar, and let's say that its maximum value will be 20. So these are the columns in the book. So hit enter and you can see that the query is executed successfully. So now let's write here show tables. And now you can see that the tables in Linux Int are books and employees. So we have also seen that how we can get the list of tables by executing the show tables query, and how we can describe the columns in a table while creating a column. So we have covered our topic number 5 and 6 as well. If I change the database information underscore schema, and now I write here on the terminal show tables, so you can see that it has 73 tables here in the database. So that is how you can get the information of the tables. So far we have covered the 6 topics of this long course. And now let's move on to the next topic, that is essentially the topic number 7, that how we can insert the rows or data into a table. So in order to insert the data into the tables, let me first change the database, use Linux Int. So the database is changed. So when you have to insert or add some data into the table, then you have to write here insert. It could be either in capital letters or in small letters, but it is a good practice to write these keywords into the capital letters. Then write here into, now write the name of the table employees, that I want to insert this data into the employees table. Now define the columns for the employees table that have ID, name, email and designation. Alright, so after defining the columns, we have to define the values for each column. So write here values. The value for the ID is 1, the name is John. So whenever you have to write a string value or the varchar value, you have to put these double quotes. And the name of the employees is John, and the email is, for example, johnexample@gmail.com, and the designation is manager. Alright. So after writing the query, put the semicolon and hit enter. Query is okay. It means that it is successfully executed and one row is affected. Now let's add the data into the books tables. So write here insert into books. Now write the name of the columns ID, name and ISBN. Define the values. The value for the ID is 1. The name is Unix system configuration, and the ISBN number is gonna be, for example, ABC123. So put semicolon here and execute this query. So we can see that now it has shown the error because we have exceeded the maximum limit of the name of the book. So let's execute this query again, and let me just remove this system. And we will also see in the later topics that how we can edit the tables. So now you can see that the query is executed successfully and one row is affected. So we have added or inserted the data successfully into the tables. So this was our topic number 7. And our next topic is selecting rows from a table, that how we can see the inserted or added data from a table and how we can list down this data on the terminal. So to select rows from the table, you have to write here select. If you want to select all the rows, then you have to write here static from, and now write the name of the table, for example employees. So you can see that it has now printed the data which is present into this table. So here in this table we have one row, that is John, and the ID is 1, email is johnexample@gmail.com, and designation is manager. So let's add a new row into this table. So the query of insert will remain same, but we have to edit the values. And the name of the employee is Mark, and the email is markexample@gmail.com, and it is a writer. Alright, hit enter, execute the query again, select static from employees, and now you can see that it has 2 rows and it is showing the data that is present in the employees table. Now we have 2 rows, the ID is 1 for the John, and this is the email, and the designation is manager, and the second row is the ID is 2, the name is Mark, the email is markexample@gmail.com, and the designation is writer. Similarly, to see the data of the books table, right here select static from books, and now it shows the data of the books column. So I hope you got the point, and now you know that how you can see the data that is present in a table, and you can select all the rows from a table. So now let's move on to the next topic, that is using predicates with where clause. So in the previous topic we have seen that how we can extract or see all the rows from a table and all the data from a table. But what if we want to see a particular value or a particular data, like if I want to see the name of the employees whose ID is 1. So in order to do that, we need a clause, that is where clause, and the where clause works like an if condition in any programming language. This clause is used to compare the given value with the field value available in MySQL table. If the given value from outside is equal to the available field value in the MySQL table, then it returns that row. So now let's go back to the terminal and take an example, that if we want to see the data of an employee whose ID is equal to 1, that how we can extract the data of that particular employee. So for this you have to write here select static from employees, and now you have to put the where clause, where ID is equal to, and now write the value of the ID, that where ID is equal to 1. So now it will work like an if condition, and it will extract the information of that particular employee whose ID is equal to 1. So hit enter, and now you can see on the terminal that it has printed the detail of that particular employee whose ID is equal to 1, name is John, email is equal to johnexample@gmail.com, and designation is manager. And similarly, if you want to put a query on the basis of name, like extract the value of the employee or data of the employee whose name is John, so then you have to write in this way, write the name of the column, that is name, and then you have to write the value for the name. And now it shows the information that this is the employee whose name is John. And similarly, on the basis of designation, like if you have 1,000 managers in your company, and if you want to see that which employee is a manager, so you can write here manager, and then you have to write the name of the manager, that is John, and then you have to write the value of the manager. So now it will work like an if condition in any programming language. So in order to do that, we need a clause, that is where clause, and the where clause works like an if condition in any programming language. So now let's go back to the terminal and take an example, that if we want to see the data of an employee whose ID is 1. So now it will work like an if condition, and it will extract the information of that particular employee whose ID is equal to 1. So hit enter, and now you can see that it has printed the data of that particular employee whose ID is equal to 1. So now let's go back to the terminal and it will put the information of all the managers that are present or stored in this database. And similarly for the books column, if you know the ISBN number of a book and you want to extract the data of that particular book, then it will show you the required data. So there is no book that is ISBN is equal to ABC123, and because it is a case sensitive, so when I wrote here ABC into capital letters, then it shows the information. So there are multiple operators that you can use in the where clause. For example, you can use the is not equal to sign as well. So if we write a query, select static from employees where ID is not equal to 1. So the ID is not equal to 1. It means that it will not show the row that where the employee's ID is equal to 1. So therefore it is showing the information of the second employee. And similarly, if you want to extract only the name of the employee, like select name from employees where ID is equal to 1. So now it shows the name of the employee only, that the name is Mark. And if you want to extract the data from the multiple columns like email as well, so write name comma second column name, that is email, and now it shows two columns, name and email. So similar to the not equal to sign, we can also use the greater than sign. Like if I want to select the name and email from the employees table where ID is greater than 1, then I will write here the greater than sign like this and hit enter, and now it will show the name and the email of the employee where the ID is greater than 1. And we can also use the less than operator. So if I want to extract the name and email of the employee where ID is less than 1 or less than 2, because we do not have any ID which is less than 1. So now it shows the first employee, that is John, and the ID is 1. Let me just put the ID column here as well so you can have an idea. So our condition was where ID is less than 2. So here it has listed down the ID, that is 1, name is John, and email is johnexample@gmail.com. Similar to this, we can also use less than equal to. So when I will put here less than equal to, now it will extract 2 rows. And when I will put here greater than equal to, then it will extract only 1 row. Because there is only one ID which is equal to 2 and we do not have any ID which is greater than 2. So this is how you can use the where clause to extract the data based on a particular condition. So I hope you got the point. Now let's move on to the next topic, that is joining the tables. But before joining the tables, we must have the concept of the primary and foreign keys, which is our topic number 14. So let me just grab this topic on top. And after discussing and building the understanding of the primary and the foreign key, so now let's discuss about the primary and foreign keys, that what are the primary and foreign keys and what is the purpose of creating these type of keys. As we know that the MySQL is the relational database. So in the relational database we have multiple tables and there is a relation between these tables. So we create the primary and foreign keys to build the relation between these tables and to uniquely identify the data into a particular table. So let's discuss the primary key. So the primary key is used to distinguish the data and its value is unique, that no other row will have the similar value for the primary key. So let's take an example that we have a database of the university, and in the university we have students, we have teachers, we have different departments. So for every student, the student ID will be the primary key, because on the basis of the student ID we can distinguish the student. Otherwise there could be a case that multiple students have the same name, like there could be multiple students with the same name like John. So if there are 15 students in a class, so there is a possibility that there could be multiple students with the name John. So we cannot distinguish the data on the basis of the name or on the basis of the class, but after creating the primary key, we can distinguish the data. So in case of the student ID will be the primary key and it will be used to distinguish the data of the student. So now let's discuss about the foreign keys. Foreign keys are created in a table to build a relationship between the tables. So now let's take an example of the department table. That in the department table we will have multiple departments. Every department will have a primary key which will be the department ID, and on the basis of the department ID we will be able to distinguish the department. So there is a relation between the student and the department because every student has a department. So when we are creating a table of the student, we have to import the primary key of the department into the student table, that we can create a relationship between these two tables. So when we import a primary key of a particular table into another table to create a relation between these two tables, then we call it a foreign key. So I hope you got the point that what are the primary key and what is the foreign key and what is the purpose of using these types of keys. This is an ERD diagram that we call entity relationship diagram. So when we create a table into a database, we call it an entity. So here we have a table for a user, and in the user table the primary key is the ID because on the basis of the ID we can distinguish a user. And a user have a link with the assignment record table because every user or a student will have an assignment. So in the assignment, when we will create the assignment, we will put the user ID or the primary key of the user table into the assignment record table so that we will be able to see that what assignment is assigned to a particular user or student. So now let's understand that how we can create the primary and foreign keys through the query and how we can deal with it in MySQL. So open up your terminal, MySQL -u root -p. Enter your password and your MySQL is activated. Alright. So previously we created a database that was Linuxine database to understand that how we can create the database and create tables. So in order to understand the concept of the primary and the foreign key, we are going to create a new database that is university database. Alright. The database is created successfully. And you can see that here we have the university database. So now let's see that how we can create the primary and foreign keys. So in the university we have multiple departments. So let's create a table for the departments. Create table and departments. Okay. And now we have to define the columns for this table. Each department will have a department ID like DEP ID, and it will be a primary key. So when you have to define a key as a primary key, then you have to write here not null because it will contain any value. Auto increment, because the primary key will be auto incremented, you will not enter any value for the primary key, but whenever you will insert a data into a table, the value for the primary key will be auto incremented. For example, you insert a data like one row, so the first ID will be 1. So when you will insert another row, then its value will be 2 automatically. So you do not have to mention the value while you are inserting the data into this particular table. So it will be integer, it will be not null, it will be auto incremented, and it will be primary key. So in order to define the primary key, you have to write here primary key. So after that, every department will have a name, and the name will be the varchar. So let's take its value 40. Alright. And it could be not null because every department will have a name for sure. So these were the two things that a department will have. It will be department ID and DEP name. Let me just do a DEP name. Alright. So after writing the query, hit enter. But initially we have not selected any database, so let me just select the university database. University. Alright, now the database is selected, and now let's execute this query again. And you can see that the query is executed successfully and 0 rows are affected. So show tables, and we have a department table. So when you have to see the structure of your created table, then you have to write on the terminal DESC, and then you have to write the name of the table departments, and it will show you the structure of this table, that what columns you have and what are the values or constraints that are applied on this table. So in the department table, now you can see that we have two fields. First is DEP ID, and the type is int. It is not null. It is a primary key. The default value would be null, and it will be auto incremented. And for the department name, we can see that its value is varchar. It could not be null. It is not a primary key, but by default its value is null, and it is not auto incremented. So I hope you got the point. So now let's insert data into the departments table. Insert into departments DEP ID and DEP name. Now define the values. So for the auto incremented or the primary key, when you are defining the values, you can write here null, or you can leave it. And now for defining the name of the department, write here computer sciences. Alright. So we are inserting the data into the department table. So query is okay and one row is affected. Select static from departments. And you can see that we have one row here, that the department ID is 1 and the department name is computer sciences. But you can see in the query that while defining the values, we do not have put any value because it is auto incremented, so it assigned it value 1. So let's insert another department value, and it is gonna be the engineering department, electrical engineering. Alright, the query is executed, and similarly mechanical engineering department, and now insert the biosciences department. Alright, so select static from departments. And now you can see we have 4 values, and each department ID for each department is auto incremented. So this is how you can create the primary keys, and you can auto increment their values. So now let's move on to build an understanding about the foreign key. So in each department we have multiple staff. Okay, so for each staff it could be teacher, it could be the clerical staff. So let's create a table for the teacher, because every teacher is the employee of the department, and while creating the table for the teacher we have to import the department ID as a foreign key into the teacher table. Create table teacher. It will have an ID which will be TID. We are defining the columns here, and it will be integer, not null, auto increment, and it would be primary key. And after that we would have a teacher name, that would be T name. It would be varchar, and its value will be 20, and it could not be null. So a teacher have a salary as well, salary varchar 20 and it would be not null. The teacher also have an email address, email varchar 20, and it have a phone number varchar. So it is best practice to write varchar when you are not sure about the type of your column value. You have to write here depart id, it will be integer, it would be not null. So now we have created id, that is depart id, and now we have to make it a foreign key. So in order to make it a foreign key, write here foreign key, and we have to make depart id a foreign key. Now we have to create a reference with the table. The table is departments, and in the departments table we have DEP ID. So we are good to go with the query. Hit enter and you can see that the query is executed successfully. So now let's see the structure of this table. Teacher, and this is the structure of this table. Like we have TID, we have the T name, salary, email, phone, department, and the type. Let me just zoom in the terminal. So now let's see that how we can insert the data into the teachers table and how we can insert the value of the foreign key. So write the query here, insert into teacher, that is essentially the name of the table, TID, T name, salary, email, phone, and depart ID. Alright, so these are the column names, and now we have to define the values for it. As we know that the TID is a primary key, so we have to write here null. The name of the teacher is John. Its salary is $3,000 and email is john@university.com, and the phone number is 001-123-123-456. And now we have to get the department ID. So if you know the department ID, then it is well and good. So you can write here simply 1 if the teacher is from the computer sciences, or if it is from the electrical engineering, then you have to write here 2. So simply if you know the department ID, then you have to write here the department ID. But in case if you do not know the department ID, you have to select it from the database. Then we have to execute the subquery into this query. So to write a subquery, put another set of the brackets and write here select DEP ID from departments where DEP name is equal to, and now you have to write the name of the department, for example computer sciences. Alright, so this is your query and you are good to go. So basically this part of the query will fetch the department ID and it will store it into the database table. Hit enter and the query is executed successfully, and you can see that the one row is affected. So if I write here select static from teachers, excuse me for this, from teacher, so you can see that here we have an employee whose ID is equal to 3 and name is John, and the salary is $3,000, the email is this, phone is this, and department ID is equal to this. So the above rows that you are seeing, I was doing it for the testing purpose. I was just trying to execute the query, so therefore I added these rows. But the query that I have displayed here, it is the number 3. The teacher ID is equal to 3, and you can see that it has got the department ID from this subquery. So this was the concept of the primary and the foreign key, that how you can use the primary and foreign key and create a relationship between the tables. So I hope you got the point, and that's it for this topic. Now let's move on to the next topic, that is topic number 11, group by aggregates. And in this topic we will see that how we can sum the values of a particular table, how we can count the rows in a particular table, how we can find the minimum value, maximum value and average. Before understanding this topic, we have to create two tables in the university database that we created previously. So I'm going to create the table and insert the data into the tables in fast forward mode, and later on I will explain you these tables. So this is the query to create a student table, and in the student table we have a student ID as a primary key. The student has a name, a roll number, email. So this is the query, hit enter. And you can see that the query is executed successfully, and now I am creating the fee table. So this is the query to create the fee table, and in the fee table we have fee ID, we have challan number, we have amount, we have status of the fee, and student ID as a primary key from the student table. Alright, so this is our query, hit enter. And the table is created successfully. Alright, now we have four tables in university database, that are department, fee, student and teacher. I'm going to insert some data in student and fee table. Alright, so I have inserted the data in student table. So these are two students present in the student table, John and Mark. And similarly, I have inserted some data in the fee table, that there is a student whose student ID is equal to 1 and he has paid 4 challan, which is essentially John. So now let's perform the aggregate functions on the fee table to understand the concept of sum, average, max, minimum, count and the distinct. Sometimes you need to perform some calculation on multiple rows, so these functions are very appropriate and useful to perform these type of calculations. So first of all, let's discuss the count function. The count function returns the total number of values in the specified field. It works on both numeric and non-numeric data types. All aggregate functions by default exclude null values before working on the data. For example, you want to count the challan of the student 1 who has a student ID 1. So then you will write here select count student ID from fee where student ID is equal to 1. So it has returned the value 4. It means that there are 4 rows which contain the student ID which is equal to 1. So as we can see in the table. So this is how you can count the rows. And similarly, if you want to see the minimum amount of the fee that is paid by any student in the fee table, then you have to write here select minimum amount from fee table. So it has shown you here that the minimum amount that is paid is $1,000. We can verify it. So you can see that the minimum amount that is paid is $1,000. So we can also add the where condition here, where student ID is equal to 1. So the student ID is equal to 1 has paid minimum amount of 1,000. And similarly, if you want to get to know about the maximum amount that is paid by the student ID 1, then you have to write here max instead of min, and it will show you the maximum amount, and that is 4,000 essentially. You can execute this query without where condition and we will have the same result. Alright, so if you want to know that how much amount is paid by the student ID 1 or how much total amount is paid in terms of fees, then you can sum the particular column value. For example, if you want to know the total amount of fee, then you have to write on the terminal select sum amount from fee. So it will sum the value and it will tell you that how much amount is paid in terms of fees. So we have the total amount, sum amount of $10,000. And similarly, if you want to do the sum of the fee of a particular student ID, where student ID is equal to 1. Alright. And similarly, we can take the average of all the amount. So to calculate the average, you have to write here AVG, and it will take the average of the amount. So while taking the average, it will sum all the values and then it will divide it by total rows. So the average value is 2500. If you have duplicate data in your table and you want to select the distinct data, then you can choose the distinct keyword. For example, student ID from fee. You know that we had 4 entries of the student ID, one in the table fee, but when we have written here distinct, it has counted the one ID. So that is how you can choose the aggregate functions in MySQL. I hope you got the point. Now let's move on to the next topic, that is joining tables, and it is topic number 12. A join clause is used to combine rows from 2 or more tables based on a related column between them. We can use the join clause when we have a relation between the tables, as we create the relation by defining the foreign keys or by creating the primary keys in a particular table. So when you have a relation between the tables, then you can use the join clause to combine rows from 2 or more tables, and it will be surely based on the related column between them. So now let's check our databases that we have created. Open up your terminal. Write here MySQL -u root -p to enable your SQL. Alright. Show databases. So these are the databases that we have. So now let's use the university database. Show tables. And these are the tables that we have. So in last topic we created a relation between the fee and the student table. So let's consider these two tables, that are fee and student. So in the fee table, we have a student ID, which is basically the foreign key that has been linked by the student table. And the other table is student table. And in the student table, we have a student ID. So basically these two tables are linked by the student ID. Alright, so we can use the join clause to combine rows from these two tables, and it will be based on the related column between them, which is student ID. There are different types of MySQL joins, so let me tell you these types and give you an overview of these types. The first type of join is inner join. So when we use the inner join, it returns records that have matching value in both tables. The second type is left join. It returns all records from the left table and the matched record from the right table. So the left table will be the first table that we will define in our query, and the right table will be the second column that we will define in our query. The third type of join is right join. It returns all records from the right table and the matched records from the left table. And the fourth type is full join. It returns all records when there is a match in either left or right table. So first of all, let's see an example of inner join. For example, we have a relation between the fee and the student table. So let's use the inner join query to extract the fee ID and the student name. So right here on your terminal, select fee ID, FID, STD name, STD roll number, and email from student. So basically we are extracting the details of the student who has paid a particular fee. So because every fee will have a fee ID, so therefore we are extracting the fee ID as well. And now we have to use the inner join. So right here, inner join fee on. And after writing the on, you have to write here the column name that is similar between these two tables, or which have the similar value between these two tables. So for the student, we have stdid, which is equal to student ID. Alright. and the student ID is defined here in the fee table. So in this query, we are basically extracting the fee ID, student name, student roll number, student email from the student, and we have created the inner join or join on the fee table, and the matched value between these two tables is std, which is equal to student ID. So you can see that we are extracting the data from two tables because this data is stored into the student table and this fee data is stored in fee table. So rather than extracting the student ID from the fee table first and then we have to write a subquery to extract the student name, roll number and email from the other table, from the student table, so it will be a lengthy process. So the inner join has basically created the ease for us. So by writing the inner join query, we have extracted the data from two tables. And it shows on the matched value that the fee ID. So if I write here, select static from fee, so you can see that the student ID is equal to 1, which is repeated 4 times in this table, and this student ID is also present in the student table, so it has basically matched the value of the student ID and it has returned us this data. So I hope you got the point that what is inner join and how we can use it. So the next that we are going to discuss is MySQL left join. The left join keyword returns all records from the left table, that is table 1, and all the matched records from the right table, that is table 2. So the result is null from the right side if there is no match. So in the student table, we have two students basically. You can see that these are John and Mark. So when we wrote the query of the inner join, so basically it matched the value of the student ID in student table and fee table, and then it returned the value, and it does not return the value of the John. But if we want to see all the data that is present in the student table or left table or table number 1, then we have to write here left join instead of inner join. So if we hit enter, you can see that now it returns the mark as well. And for the mark in fee table, we do not have any fee ID, so it returns null for it. And it returns all the values for the John. And from the student table, it also selects the values or information for the mark. But because there is no fee ID for mark in the fee table, so therefore it returns null. The left table is student 1 because we have defined it first, so it is table number 1, and the second table is fee, so it is the right table, which is table number 2. So I hope you got the point. The next type of join that we are going to discuss is MySQL right join. The right join keyword return all the records from the right table, that is table number 2, and the matched records from the left table, that is table number 1. So the result is null from the left side when there is no match. So the syntax is simple. You just have to replace this left with the right and the other query will remain same. So hit enter, and now you can see that we only have these values in the fee table, therefore it has shown these 4 columns. But if we change this query and write here fee, and we make it first table or the left table, and make the student table the right, and make the student table the right table or second table, so now you can see that it returns the mark as well. So basically from the left table, which was the fee table, it only extracted the matched values, but from the right table it extracted all the values. So this is how this right join works. The fourth type of join that we are going to discuss is full join. The full join keyword returns all records when there is a match in left table or right table. So when there will be a match in either table, it will return the values. So the syntax of using the full join is very simple. You just have to write here full and it will return you the value. So you can see that there was a match in these tables, so it returned you these values. So I hope you got the point that what are joins and how we can use them. The best advantage of using the joins is that you can combine 2 or multiple tables in a single query. So if you do not use the join, so what you do, you basically extract the value of the foreign key from the table first, and then you write another query to extract the data. For example, in the fee table, select static from fee, If I want to get the information of the student whose student ID is equal to 1 and you are not using the join, so what you will do, you will get the student ID first, like select student ID from fee where FID is equal to 1. So it will return you the student ID 1. So after getting this ID, you will write another query, select static from student where stdid is equal to 1, and it will return you this value. So when you are doing in this way, you have to write 2 queries and it will be a time taking and lengthy process. But when you are choosing the joins, so you can simply extract the data. So I hope you got the point that what are joins and why they are important and how we can use them in MySQL, and that's it for this topic. Now let's move on to the next topic, that is topic number 13, having condition on aggregate. So in the topic number 11, we saw multiple aggregate functions like sum, count, mean, max and average. So I just want to revise the topic number 11, and the one thing that I skipped in this topic was the group by keyword or group by clause. So let's see that how we can use the group by keyword, and then we will move on to the topic number 13. It will develop your understanding that why we use the group by keyword. So if I write here select a static from fee, so I have inserted some rows into the fee table, and you can see that now we have 2 student IDs, 1 and 2, which are repeated multiple times. And if I write here select student ID from fee, and you can see that the 1 is repeating for the 4 times and the 2 is repeating for the 5 times. So what the group by clause actually do, it is used to group the rows that have the same values. So the group by clause is used in the select statement. Optionally, it is used in conjunction with the aggregate function to produce summary reports from the database. But you can also use it in a simple query. Like if I write here select student ID from fee, that is group by student ID. Alright, so in the previous result we have seen that we have 4 repeated values for the student ID 1 and the 5 repeated values for the student ID 2. But by choosing the group by, now it has grouped the rows that have the same values and it has only returned the 2 values 1 and 2. And similarly we can use this group by clause with the count, select count student ID from fee, and you can see the result that the IT number 1 is repeated for the 4th time and the IT number 2 is repeated for the 5th time. So the group by clause is used to group the rows that have the same values, and you can use it with the aggregate functions as well. So now let's move on to the topic number 13, that is having condition on aggregate. So in the MySQL we have a clause that is having clause. The having clause was added to MySQL because the where keyword could not be used with the aggregate functions. So when you have to write some condition on the aggregate function, so instead of writing where, we have to use having clause. Let's go back to our terminal again. So if we want to fetch the value of the student ID when the count is greater than 1, then we have to write here select student ID from fee group by student ID having count, student ID count is greater than 1. So what we are doing in this query, we are just selecting or extracting the student ID from the fee table, and we have applied the group by clause here on the student ID, and on the aggregate function that is count, we have applied a condition that the count must be greater than 1. So now we can see that the count is 4 and 5 and it is greater than 1. So you can see that it selects the student ID from the fee table and it applies the group by function on the student ID because we do not have the repeated value in the result, and it also satisfies our condition that is having count for the student ID is greater than 1. And similarly, if I write here 10 and hit enter, you can see that we have empty set. Similarly for 9, and similarly for 5 and for 4. Alright, so when you have applied the condition greater than 4, so you can see that for the student ID we have count 5. It means that it is greater than 4 and it fulfills our condition. So that's why it has returned here 2. And if I write here 3, and you will see that it will return the ID 1 and 2 as well. So I hope you got the point that what actually group by do and what is the having condition. So if I write here select sum amount from fee where student ID is equal to 1. So the total sum of the amount is $10,000. So now we are going to apply the having condition that select student ID from fee group by student ID having some amount greater than $60. Alright, so this is our query and we are selecting the student ID from the fee table, which is grouped by the student ID, so that we will not have the repeated IDs. And we have applied the condition on the aggregate function by using the having keyword that the sum of amount for a particular student should be greater than 60. So it is the student number 1 who has the sum of the amount greater than 60, because the sum of the amount for the first student is $10,000 and the second student is 50. So if I write here 10, you will see that it will return us the 2 student IDs. And if I remove this group by condition and hit enter, so you can see that it shows an error because we cannot use the having condition without using the group by. And similarly, we can apply the having condition on max and min amount. So the max value is 10 for the student 1, and for the min, it will return student number 1, and for the average as well. Alright. So this was the concept of the having clause, that what is the having clause and how we can use the having clause while we are putting some condition on the aggregate function. So I hope you got the point, and that's it for this topic. Now let's move on to the next topic, that is creating the indexes, and it is topic number 14. So in this topic we will learn about the index and how to use the MySQL create index statement to add an index to a table. So first of all, let's see that why we need the indexes. Suppose you have a phone book that contains all the names and phone numbers of people in a city. Let's say you want to find John and Mark phone number. Knowing that the names are alphabetically ordered, you first look for the page where the last name is John, and then you look for Mark and his phone number. Now if the names in the phone book were not sorted alphabetically, you would need to go through all the pages, reading every name on it until you find the Mark and John. This is called the sequential searching. You go over all the entries until you find the person with the phone number that you are looking for. So relating the phone book to the database table, if you have the table phone books and you have to find the phone number of John and Mark, then you will write a query that select phone number from phone book where first name is John. So it is pretty easy. Although the query is fast, the database has to scan all the rows of the table until it finds the row. If the table has millions of rows without an index, the data retrieval would take a lot of time to return the result. So an index in it that improves the speed of data retrieval on a table at the cost of additional writes and storage to maintain it. So when we create a table with a primary key or unique key, MySQL automatically creates a special index that is named as primary, and this index is called the clustered index. The primary index is special because the index itself is stored together with the data in the same table. The clustered index enforces the order of rows in the table. because we arrange the rows on the basis of primary key. If your primary key is auto incremented, so for sure it will create the primary key 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in this sequence. Other indexes other than the primary index are called secondary indexes or non-clustered indexes. So now let's see that how we can create the indexes in MySQL. To create the indexes, we use a keyword that is create index. Indexes are used to retrieve data from the database more quickly than otherwise. The user cannot see the indexes. They are just used to speed up the searches or queries. Updating a table with indexes takes more than updating a table without indexes. So you have to create indexes on those columns that will be frequently searched against. For example, you have a student table and you have to search a student by using the student ID or by using the student roll number. Then you have to create indexes on the student roll number. Because when you will create the student ID, it will be for sure the primary key. So open up the terminal and let's see that how we can create the indexes. MySQL -u root -p, enter your password here, use university database. Alright, show tables. So these are the tables. DSC students. Alright, so let's take an example that you have 2000 students in your database and you want to search the student by student roll number. So what it will do, it will search all the column and rows in the student table and it will look for the specific student roll number. But if we create an index on student roll number column, then it will fetch or search the data more quickly. So now let's see that how we can create the indexes. So in order to create the index, you have to write here create index and define the index name here like roll number. Alright, so this is the index name. On define the name of the table or write the name of the table, that is student, and now write the column name that we want to create this index on roll number column. Alright, so this is our query. So here in this query we can have multiple columns as well, and it depends upon your particular situation. Alright, the index is created successfully. So the index can be duplicated. If you want to create a unique index that cannot be used for any other column, then you have to write here unique index email on email. So now we are choosing the email column. Alright, the unique index is created successfully. So once the index is created, you can drop the index. So in MySQL, if you want to drop the index, then you have to write here alter table, define the table name or write the table name, that is student drop index, and now you have to write the index name like email. Alright, the index is deleted successfully. So it was all about the indexes, that how you can create the indexes in MySQL. So I hope you got the point. Now let's move on to the next topic, that is topic number 15, running SQL from a file. So by using the MySQL, you can run the SQL queries from a file. So in a particular situation, if you have to run the multiple queries simultaneously or in a sequence, then MySQL provides you an advantage to run the queries by using the .sql file. So in order to run the query from .sql file, first of all you have to create .sql file. Alright, so I have navigated to my desktop, and when you have to create a file, you have to write here touch, and then you have to write the name of the file, that is query.sql. Alright, you can see that the file is created successfully, and now we can open this file and we can write the queries here like show databases. So this is our query, and now let's try to run this query by using the terminal or MySQL. So when you have to run the query from .sql file, then write here source, copy the path of this file, go to the properties, and this is the path of the file. Now paste this path on your terminal query.sql. Alright, hit enter, and you can see that the query which was inside the query.sql file is executed successfully, and you have the databases information on your terminal. And if you want to switch to the databases, and for this purpose we use the query use Linux in database. Alright, and you can see that the Linux in database is changed. Now let's write a query to drop a table. But first of all, let's see the tables that are in Linux int. So we have a table here that is books table, and now let's delete this table. So whenever you have to delete a table, you have to write drop table books. Alright, so books is the name of the table. One query executed successfully, and if we write here show tables, you can see that there is empty set. The books table is deleted successfully. And similarly, you can write the queries in .sql file to create the tables or to insert the data. For example, write here create table books again with columns ID that is int and the name that is varchar 20. Alright, so this is our query, and then what it has to do, it has to show the tables. Alright, so what it has done, basically it has created the table books, and then it has executed the next query that is show tables. So whenever you have to execute the query from .sql file, so what you have to do, you have to create a file, then you have to write on your terminal source, and then you have to give the path of the file, and it will run the file. I hope you got the point, and that's it for this topic. Now let's move on to the next topic, that is transaction, rollback, commit and auto commit. And this is essentially the topic number 16. So first of all, let's discuss that what is transaction. A transaction is a sequential group of database manipulation operations which is performed as if it were on single work unit. So in the simple word, a transaction will never be complete unless each individual operation within the group is successful. If any operation within the transaction fails, the entire transaction will fail. So practically, when you are creating your database or you are inserting data into your database, so when you execute multiple queries and you execute all the queries, all of them together as a part of a transaction. Transaction has many properties like atomicity. This ensures that all operations within the work unit are completed successfully. Otherwise, the transaction is aborted at the point of failure and previous operations are rolled back to their former state. The next is consistency. This ensures that the database properly changes states upon a successful committed transaction. The next is isolation. It enables transactions to operate independently on and transparent to each other. And the last is durability. It ensures that the result or effect of a committed transaction persists in case of system failure. So whenever you have to use the transaction in MySQL, then what you have to do, you have to use a keyword that is begin work, and you have to end it with the commit or a rollback. So now let's talk about the auto commit, commit and rollback. MySQL automatically commits statements that are not part of a transaction. The result of any update, delete or insert statement not proceed with begin or start transaction, and it will immediately be visible to all the connection. The auto commit variable is set true by default, and this can be changed. You can see the status of the auto commit by writing on your terminal select and auto commit, and it is showing the one here. It means that the auto commit is enabled. So MySQL will automatically commit statements that are not part of a transaction. And you can change the auto commit value as well. If you want to make it false or you want to disable the auto commit, then you have to write here auto commit set auto commit is equal to false. And if we execute the above query again, it means that it is enabled false. So instead of false, you can write here 0 as well. And when you have to enable it, you have to write here 1 and it will be enabled. You can see that now it is enabled successfully. Or you can enable it by writing here true. If the auto commit set to false and the transaction not committed, the changes will be visible only for the current connection. So after writing the commit statement or executing the commit statement, then these changes will be visible for all connection. Use test database. Now let's create a test table. Create table, test table, and it has one column that is TID and it is integer. So now consider the two connections to explain the commit and auto commit. I am inserting one row into test table. When the value of the auto commit is enabled, it is equal to 1. Alright. Now you have to set the auto commit value 0. Alright. Show auto commit. Select, excuse me for this. Alright, now you can see that the auto commit value is 0 now. And now let's insert the data into the test table. That is gonna be 2, 3 and 4. Alright, the query is executed. Select static from test table. So now you can see that the value is inserted and you can see the values 4 rows here. But if you are using the connection number 2 and if you execute this query and you have auto commit disabled, then it will not be displayed until you commit this value. And if you have inserted the value and it is not displayed to the connection number 2, then what you have to do, you have to write here commit, and this value will be committed and all the connection in your databases will be able to see these values. So when the connection number 2 will execute this query, the values will be displayed. So now let's talk about the rollback. If anything went wrong in your query execution, rollback is used to revert the changes. So if I execute the insert query again and I write here the values 5, 6 and 7, select static from test table. And if I think that I have inserted the wrong values, then what I can do, I can write here rollback. And you can see that now the 5, 6, 7 is no more exist in my table because it has reverted this transaction or the query execution. So once the commit is executed and then you execute the rollback, then you cannot revert your query. If we run this query again, and now I write here commit and I write here rollback. So now you will see that these values will be present there. Select static from test table. So now you can see that the value number 5, 6 and 7 exist in my table and I cannot revert them because the transaction is committed. Select auto commit. The value of auto commit is 0 and if I set it 1 to 1 and insert some data 8, 9 and 10, so now we cannot revert it by writing the rollback because it is auto committed. Select static from test table and you can see that it is not reverted, the value exists there. So this was all about the transaction, and in this topic we have seen that how we can disable the auto commit, how we can enable the auto commit, what is commit and what is rollback. So I hope you got the point, and that's it for this topic. Now let's move on to the next topic, that is using InnoDB storage engine, and it is topic number 17. Storage engines are MySQL components that can handle the SQL operations for different table types to store and manage information in a database. InnoDB is mostly used general purpose storage engine, and as of MySQL 5.5 and later, it is the default engine. There are many storage engines available in MySQL and they are used for different purposes. So the InnoDB is basically the default storage engine for MySQL. So as we have installed the later version than MySQL 5.5 and it is MySQL 8 installed on our system, so the InnoDB is the default storage engine. So what is the role of the storage engine? It is basically a component of MySQL and it is used to store and manage the information in database. So whatever the table that we create, whatever the columns that we create, and whatever the data that we insert in a particular table, it is stored in the storage engine. There are multiple storage engines available in MySQL. So if you want to see all the storage engines, then you have to write on your terminal after activating the MySQL mode, show engines. And it will show you the list of engines here. So you can see that we have multiple engines and InnoDB is one of them and it is the default engine. So therefore the memory for this is yes, because we are using the memory of the InnoDB storage engine, and these are the other engines that are available in MySQL. So you can also use these engines if you want to. So whenever we are creating a new table, we can specify the add engine table option to mention a storage engine. So these are our databases, and let's select the test database, use test. Alright, so now let's create a table and specify the engine type as well. Create table test table 1, which has an ID that is integer, and it has a column that is name and it is varchar. So whenever you have to define the type of the engine, you have to write here engine keyword, and after this you have to put the equal sign, and after that you have to write the engine name. So as you know that we have multiple engines here, so let's assign it an engine which is InnoDB. Alright, the query is executed. So it means that the table is successfully created into the InnoDB and we have used the storage of the InnoDB. So whenever you are creating the table and if you do not mention the engine, the default storage engine is used if you do not mention the other engine name in the engine option. You can specify the default engine by using the default storage engine service startup option, or by setting the default storage engine option in the my.conf configuration file. So you can set the default storage engine by using this query, set default underscore storage underscore engine, and after putting the equal sign you have to write the name of the engine like archive. So in this case it will be your default storage engine. Now let's create another table. Create table test table 2, which has an ID which is integer. So now let's write here show engines, and you can see that now the archive is the default engine. InnoDB is not the default engine now, and you can see that the archive is now the default engine. Let's set the InnoDB our default engine again. Alright. And now you can see that the InnoDB is the default engine. If you have created a table and you want to alter the table engine, then you have to write here alter table test table, which is essentially the name of the table, and then you have to write here engine InnoDB. Alright, so in this case it will change the default value of the engine for a particular table, that is test table. So following are the advantages of InnoDB storage engine. InnoDB has maximum performance when processing large data volumes. InnoDB table arrange your data on disk to optimize query based on primary keys. InnoDB support foreign key constraint to maintain data integrity. Therefore, insert, update and delete or all checked to ensure they do not result in inconsistencies across different tables. It is possible to mix InnoDB table with a table from other MySQL storage engine within the same statement. For example, you can use a join operation to combine data from InnoDB and memory table in a single query. And the InnoDB allows you to define the primary keys as well, as we have seen in the topic number 10. There are following disadvantages of the InnoDB. There are maximum 1017 columns are allowed in a table. Maximum 64 secondary indexes are allowed in a table. The InnoDB internal maximum key length is 3500 bytes, but MySQL itself restricts this to the 3072 bytes. The maximum row length except for variable length column is about 8000 bytes for the default page size of 16 KB. So this was the concept of the InnoDB storage engine. So I hope you got the point, and that's it for this video. So now let's move on to the next topic, that is changing the server configuration parameters. And it is essentially the topic number 18. The configuration parameters are very important for MySQL server, because in the configuration files you have to write the port numbers on which the MySQL server will run, and you have to write the IP address which will be followed by the MySQL server. So let's see that where are the configuration files in MySQL. So in order to see the configuration file, open up your terminal, and the MySQL directory is created in /etc. So right here on your terminal, cd/etc/mysql. Alright, so now we are in the MySQL directory. So what you have to do here, you have to ls here. Alright, so there are different files available in this directory that are conf.d, my.conf and all these files. So what we are gonna do, the idea is that all the configuration parameters are stored in my.cnf file. So I'm gonna open it up in nano editor, my.cnf, and this is the configuration file. So in the configuration file, it is written here that it includes the directories /etc/mysql/conf.d, and it also includes the directories that are /mysql/mysql.conf.d/. So we have to look these directories to find the configurations. So let's go back and let's write here mysql.conf.d and ls here. So we have a file here that is mysqld.cnf, and the other directory is cd conf.d. So if we ls here, we also have these files mysql.cnf and this file. So let's open it up, mysql.cnf, and it contains nothing. So it means that we have to go back to our directory, the previous directory, that is mysql.conf.d. Alright, so if we ls here, we have mysqld.cnf. So let's open it up. Alright, the file is opened. So as you can see that it is the MySQL server configuration file. So all the lines with the hash are the comments actually, and these are the lines. So these are the configuration lines. So from here the configuration of the MySQL server starts. We have a PID file which is located here, variable /run mysqld/mysqld.pid, and similarly we have a file for socket, and we have a data directory here that is /variable that is /var/lib/mysql. So when you are configuring your MySQL server, so you can change the path of these folders or these directories. So if you want to create your data directory into another folder, for example, you want to create it into MySQL folder, then you can configure this by writing here the name of your desired directory. And similarly, in this line, it specifies that if there are some errors while running the MySQL, then the logs will be written in variable /log/mysql error.log file. And if you want to change this file, you just simply have to write any name, my error.log, for example. So you can change the name of these files as well. And next we have the client. So it basically specifies the port on which the MySQL server will run. So by default the MySQL server run on 3306 port, and if I remove these lines and if I save this file, so it will also run on the port 3306 because it is the default port for MySQL. Alright. So the idea is that for the data directory we have this path. So whenever we create some tables, we create some databases or something new into this database, all these things are created in this directory. So this is the path of this particular directory. So I'm going to copy this path, and we can also visit this directory to see that where our databases are stored and where our tables are stored. So I hope you got the idea of the ports as well. So when you are running the MySQL on your local machine, then it runs on 127.0.0.1 and it is the localhost address. So you can bind the address as well. So if you are running your MySQL at your local machine, then your address will be 127.0.0.1. And if you are running your MySQL server on your physical machine, then you have to write here bind-address, and then you have to write here the IP address of your server, for example 192.1.100. So from this file you can change the configuration of MySQL. So I hope you got the point, and that's it for this topic. So now let's move on to the next topic, that is topic number 19, reading the MySQL server log file for error messages. So a log file is a file that records either events that occur in an operating system or other software runs. So whenever you run the MySQL server and you encounter any error, then this information of the error is stored into the log file, which we call the MySQL error log file. So now in this topic we have to explore that how we can read the MySQL server log file. So for this purpose you have to open up your terminal and navigate to this directory, that is /variable/log/mysql. Alright, so now we are navigated to this directory, and I'm gonna do ls here to see that what are the files that are present here. So there is one file that is error.log. It means that all the error logs are stored in this file. So if you want to read this file, then you can simply write on your terminal cat error log and hit enter, and it will show you the information of your errors that you have encountered while running the MySQL. So you can also open this file in nano. So this is the first error, that is server error, and later on we have InnoDB error, server, and other errors as well. So whenever you encounter an error and you want to find or you want to fix this error, then first of all it is recommended to check the log file for the errors. So I hope you got the point, that how you can see the error log files in your MySQL server. So that's it for this topic, and now let's move on to the next topic, that is creating new accounts, and this is essentially the topic number 20. So let's go back to our terminal and write here MySQL -u root -p, enter your password, and MySQL mode is activated. You can create the user account in MySQL server very easily. By adding the users, you can grant privileges to the user and you can manage your server. A user account in MySQL consists of two parts, a username and a host name. So whenever you have to create a new MySQL user account, you have to write on your shell or your terminal, create user, and now you have to write the name of the user that you want to create. For example, test user in my case. And then you have to write here @sign, and then you have to define the server type. Like I want to create this user on localhost. So therefore I am writing here localhost. So after writing the server, then you have to define the password for this newly created user. And to set the password, you have to write here identified by, and now you have to set the password like I am ABC1234. Alright, so this is my password. So this is our query to create a user, that create user, and then the name of the user, that is test user @localhost, which is identified by, that is actually the password for this user, and then you have to write the password. So your password does not satisfy the current policy requirement. So I'm just going to copy this query again, and I'm going to change the password. So this is my password now. Let's make it more simple. Alright, so the user is created successfully. So you have to take care of your password policies as well. The new user is created. So now let's see that how we can log in through this user. So what you have to do, you have to press Ctrl D, write here MySQL-u, and now write the name of this user, that is test user-p. Now enter the password for this user. And hit enter. And now you can see that this user is logged in into MySQL mode. So if I write here show databases, so you can see that the previous databases that we have created do not belong to this new user because it do not have the privileges for all that databases. So I hope you got the point that how you can create the user in your MySQL server. So now let's move on to the next topic, that is granting and revoking access to table to accounts. So it means that whenever we have to create a new account or a new user, then how we can grant the privileges to that user, and then how we can revoke the privileges from this particular user. So there are multiple types of privileges that can be granted to a user account. For example, all privileges. It grants all privileges to a user account, and then you can also use the create privileges, and it will allow user to create a database and table. Then there are multiple privileges like drop, delete, insert, select, and update. So by using the drop, the user account is allowed to drop databases and tables, and by using the delete, the user account is allowed to delete rows from a specific table. And by using the insert, the user account is allowed to insert rows into a specific table. So when you grant the select privilege, then the user account is allowed to read a database, and when you grant the update privileges, the user account is allowed to update the table rows. So these are multiple privileges that you can grant to your user. So whenever you have to grant the privileges to a specific user, then what you have to do, you have to open your root account, MySQL-u root-p. Alright. So now the root account is activated. So whenever you have to grant the privileges, you have to write on your terminal grant. And if you want to grant all the privileges, then write here all privileges on, and now you have to write the name of the database like Linuxint in my case. And this user will be able to manipulate or change all the tables in this particular database. So I have put steric here, and then you have to write here to and write the name of the user, that is test user that we have created now, @ localhost So this is our query. Alright, the query is executed, and if you want to grant a specific privilege, like you want to grant the privileges like only create, so you have to write here create, and if you want to grant the update privileges as well, then you have to write here update, and you have to execute this query, and the privileges will be granted to this particular user. So whenever you have to see that what privileges a specific users have, then you have to write here show grants, and it will show you all the privileges that a specific user or all the user have. So for a specific user, you have to write here show grants for test user, or for a specific user @ localhost. So you can see the privileges here. So whenever you want to revoke the privileges from MySQL user account, then you have to write on your terminal revoke all privileges on Linux hint static from, and now write the name of the user, that is test user @ localhost. Alright, so this is our query. Go ahead and execute this query, and you can see that all the privileges are revoked successfully and the query is executed. And now the user do not have any privilege to change these databases or to manipulate these databases. And if you want to drop a user, then you have to write a query drop user test user @ localhost, and you have to execute this query. So that is how you can grant and revoke access to table and the accounts. So I hope you got the point. The next topic is how to use MySQL dump. The MySQL dump is used to create the backups of your databases. So the backup files that are created by the MySQL dump utility are basically a set of SQL statements that can be used to recreate the original database. The MySQL dump command can also generate file in CSV and XML format. You can also use the MySQL dump utility to transfer your MySQL database to another MySQL server. So first of all, let's see the syntax of MySQL dump. So whenever you have to use the MySQL dump, what you have to do, you have to write on your terminal MySQL dump, and now you have to write the name of your database. Like we have a database Linux int, and then you have to put this > sign, and then you have to write the name of the file in which this backup will be stored. For example, file linuxint.sql. So when you will execute this query, it will create the backup of your database, that is linuxint. So now let's see that how we can create the databases. Now let's go back to our terminal. The most common use case of the MySQL dump tool is a backup of a single database. So whenever you have to create a backup, you have to write here MySQL dump -u root -p, because we will use a root user to create this backup. And now you have to write the name of your database. Then you have to put this > sign, and now write the name of the file in which this backup will be stored, like linuxint.sql. So hit enter. It will be asking for your password, so enter your root password here. Alright, the database backup is created successfully. So if you are logged in as the same user that you are using to perform the export, that the user does not require a password. So what you have to simply write here, you have to write MySQL dump linuxint, and then you have to write the name of the file. So we can backup multiple MySQL databases as well. So to backup multiple MySQL databases with one command, then you need to use --database option. So for example, if we want to take the backup of multiple databases, then we have to write here MySQL dump -u root -p --databases linuxint, and give the space, and now write the name of the other database. And we have a test database here, and the name of the file will be linuxintest.sql. So hit enter, enter your password, and the backup is created successfully. And similarly, if you want to take the backup of all your databases, then you have to write here all -databases and remove the name of these databases. Enter your password, and the backup of all the databases is created successfully. So this was all about that, how you can use the MySQL dump to create the backup of your databases. So we can also restore a MySQL dump. So in order to restore a MySQL dump, you have to use the MySQL tool. So when you have to restore the database, then you have to write here MySQL -u root -p and write the name of the database, that is linuxint, and we have stored the backup of the linuxint database into the linuxint.sql file. Enter your password, and the database is restored successfully. You can also create a new database, and you can put this backup of your database into a new database. So for this purpose, what you have to do, you have to write here MySQL -u root -p, and to create a new database, you have to write here -e create database Linux and hit enter. Enter your password. Alright, so this database is created successfully, and now we can store our backup into the newly created database, that is Linux. So the backup is stored into the newly created database. So I hope you got the point, and that's it for this topic. Alright, now let's move on to the next topic, that is topic number 23, point-in-time recovery using the binary log. So what I'm gonna do in this topic, the idea is that I'm gonna give you a brief overview of this topic, because this topic is very vast and it contains many aspects. So I will give you the brief overview of this topic. The point-in-time recovery refers to recovery of data changes made since a given point in time. So this type of recovery is performed after restoring a full backup that brings the server to its state as of the time the backup was made. So when you have to make a backup using the MySQL dump, then you can use the point-in-time recovery. Sometimes we may face the situation where we have a full MySQL database backup done with MySQL dump, and then we have to restore and recover just one single table out of our huge MySQL dump file. So further, our MySQL dump backup was taken hours ago, so we want to recover all the changes on that table since our backup was taken up to the end. The main separate technique to replace these binary logs event is to use the MySQL bin log command. However, depending on your workload, this process can be quick or slow depending on how much data there is to process. So when you have to recover some data from your backup or from your database, then you can use the MySQL bin log. So the point-in-time recovery then brings the server up to date incrementally from the time of the full backup to a more recent time. As we have discussed in the previous topic that how you can take the backups, so you will be familiar that how you can take the backups. So what is a binary log? A binary log contains all the statements that update data, and it is stored in the form of events that describe the modification, and it logs that how long each statement can do in terms of time. So the point-in-time recovery is recovering first from the backup files to restore the server to its state when the backup was made, then re-executing changes in subsequently written binary log file to redo data modification up to the desired point in time. So if I say in the simple words, so let's assume that you have taken the backup of your database at 12 AM and then you have made some changes and you want to store these changes into your backup file. So you can use the binary log for that, because the binary log store the events in the binary form. So you can get the time that when the changes were made, and you can select the changes from the binary log, and then you can store it into your backup. So this is the whole idea of using the binary log. You can see the binary logs on your terminal. So write here on your terminal mysql-u root-p, enter your password, use database Linux int, and we have to see the binary logs. So write here show binary logs. So it will show you the binary logs. So the MySQL bin utility covers the events in the binary log file from binary format to text so that they can be executed or viewed. MySQL bin log has option for selecting sections of the binary log that is based on event time or position of events within the log. For example, you have made some changes into your database that start from the point 1500 and it stop at 1600. Then what you can do, you can store these binary logs into your new file. So for this purpose, you have to write here MySQL bin log _start position, and you have to define here the start position, that is 1500, and then you have to write here the stop position, that is equal to 1600, and then you can store it into a new file by writing here the name of the file. So file.txt. Alright, so in this case you can store your binary logs, and after getting the binary logs you can store it into your backup. So when you have to restore these changes into your MySQL, then you have to write here mysql-u root-p, and after putting this sign, that is the less than sign, and you have to write the name of your binary file, that is bin.log, for example. So in this way you can use the point in time recovery. And I hope you got the overview of this topic and you know that how you can use multiple queries. So if you want to explore about this topic, then you can explore it more about it. So if you are using the MySQL in a general way for a simple purpose, then you will not encounter to use this method. So I hope you got the point. Our next and the final topic is configuring the replication. So MySQL replication is a process that allows you to easily maintain multiple copies of a MySQL data by having them copied automatically from one server to another server. So by using the replication, you can store your data or replicate your data into another server. So for this purpose, the common thing that we use, or the common framework that we use, is the master-slave replication in MySQL. So I will give you the brief overview of the configuring replication. So first of all, you have to change your setup. So you can configure the replication when you are using MySQL on a physical server, not on your local machine. So what you have to do, the idea is that you have to open your configuration file by going to the cd/etc/mysql/mysql.conf.d directory, and now you have to open the file, that is mysql.d.conf. So here you have to bind the address of your physical server, which is equal to 127.0.0.1 by default if you are running it on your local machine. But if you are running it on your physical server, then you have to write here the IP address of your physical server. And after doing these changes, you have to save your file. Then you have to log in into your mysql-u root-p, and you have to create a new user, and this will be the slave user. Then you have to grant all the privileges to this slave user, and after that you have to use your database that you want to replicate on another server. Then you have to flush the tables with read log, because you can only use the tables to read the data and you will not be able to write anything. So when you will transfer your database into your slave server, then you will unlock your tables and you will be able to write something on your table. So this is the concept of configuration replication. So by using the configuration replication, you can use a slave server and you can put your data on this server as well. So this was all about this MySQL course. So I hope you developed an understanding of this course and you have got the benefit of this course, that how you can install the MySQL and how you can configure the secure access, how you can create the databases, creating table and inserting the data into the tables. Keep visiting our YouTube channel Linux Hint and don't forget to subscribe it. Thank you.